we are not rare. But before you leave, you will perceive the lore will be unlocked. You might be stalked by a Sasquatch or a ghost witch, possibly even a ghost that will boast about knowing the Ohio grassman or even the Michigan dogman. Werewolves hunt, poltergeists are up front, but in these backwoods folklore is unlocked.
Welcome back to Folklore Unlocked. I'm Austin, and like always, I'm joined by Ethan.
Yep, hello again, everyone.
And this week, we are taking a look at something that may or may not be connected to the Black Dahlia case that we have an episode over in the Cleveland torso murders. And the background on the Cleveland case is that it was an unidentified serial killer or serial killers, and they were also known as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run in the 1930s, and that they disposed of the bodies in the Kingsbury Run neighborhood of Cleveland, Ohio, thus the name the Cleveland Torso Murders and the Mad Butcher Kingsbury Run. And there were 13 known victims which were dismembered, which also led to the Mad Butcher name.
Kingsbury Run, most of the victims were from an area east of the neighborhood known for its bars, brothels, homeless, and also gambling. And it was called the Roaring Third, or also, I guess, Hobo Jungle. So,
Yeah, it was kind of a rundown part of Cleveland during the 30s, so not not a savory place to be you were if you could avoid it.
yeah.
And there's been some conflicting accounts. Official accounts state there were 12 victims, 12 or 13, and recent research says there could be at least 20 victims. And the known victims, similar to so the known victims were killed between 1935 and 1938. So kind of like the Jack the Ripper case, which we also have an episode over. There's like for sure 12 or 13 victims in the Cleveland case, and like the canonical five of Jack the Ripper, but there could potentially be more victims that just aren't conclusively linked to the same case or cases. And two people who are possible victims, but not official victims, are the quote Lady of the Lake, which was found on September 5th, 1934, and Robert Robertson, found on July 22nd, 1950. Including the Cleveland area, the killer or killers could have been active in the Youngstown and Pittsburgh areas between the 1920s and the 1950s.
The victim profile for who, I guess, they killed, or, yeah, was usually drifters, apparently lower class, and most were called working poor. And they had nowhere else to stay besides the shanty towns called Hoovervilles. And this particular Hooverville was located in an area called the Cleveland Flats.
And the modus operandi or MO is that they beheaded the victims, often dismembered them, and occasionally severed the torso or appendages. And most male victims were castrated. And some victims showed that the bodies were treated with chemicals, turning their skin red, tough, and leathery. And most were found a considerable amount of time after their death, making identification difficult with DNA technology not being available until it was way too late and decomposition made it impossible.
Now, you see, the part that really bothers me with this is that the bodies were found with the red skin, tough and leathery. That's just so odd. I don't know.
Well, it was, we'll get to this later, but it was attributed to chemicals. So,
Hmm. Edward and
so,
oh,
so that's why the skin was red and leathery and all that.
yeah, I just don't know why they would do that. If like what reasoning why? I don't know.
We'll get to that later.
Edward Andressy, age 29, his body was found on September 23rd of 1935 in a gully at the bottom of Jackass Hill, where East 49th Street met Kingsbury Run. The head was buried near the body, which had been emasculated and was only wearing socks. The autopsy showed that he was decapitated in the mid-cervical region with a fracture of the mid-cervical vertebrae. Also had rope burns on the wrists. The cause of death was decapitation, hemorrhage, and shock. And he had been dead for, I assume, 2 to 3 days, and was an orderly in the psychiatric ward of Cleveland City Hospital, but was unemployed at the time.
Which, and the victims that we will talk about, it's kind of a trend. Like we said, mostly poor or drifters. So the next known victim is Florence Polillo, aged 44, and she was discovered between 2315 and 2325 East 20th Street, dismembered, with her dismembered body parts wrapped in paper and put in half bushel baskets. Her head was never discovered. Her cause of death was a slit throat, and due to the lack of her head, homicide couldn't be determined whether it happened or not. So the coroner couldn't determine if it was homicide or suicide, and it was covered up.
Rose Wallace, or Jane Doe 2, was identified through dental records, and Rose was a 40-year-old prostitute and had disappeared 10 months before the body was found on June 6th of 1937. And she was found in a burlap sack with a newspaper from June 1936, and again decapitated, and then was also missing a rib. Wallace disappeared on August 21st of 1936, and the victim had been dead for nearly a year. Rose allegedly disappeared from the same bar as Polillo, but not confirmed. And body is referred to as Jane Doe 2 due to lack of definitive identification.
So, like, just not definitively ID'd, but they do believe it is Rose Wallace because of dental records. But like we mentioned earlier, DNA technology at the time was very, very early in development. So, the, and just due to the DNA being so early on that they just could never get good DNA. And the Lady of the Lake, which now we're just going on to the possible victims, was a lower half of a woman's torso with the thighs still attached, but amputated at the knees. So from her knees down wasn't there, was found washed up on the shore of Lake Erie on September 4th, 1934, and found east of Broadernall. Searches found a few other body parts and had a scar on her torso, which is believed to be from an hysterectomy, which was common and made her tougher to identify, and found in almost the same spot as Jane Doe 1, which is the first official female victim. And this is where the chemical aspect comes in, because both Jane Doe 1 and the Lady of the Lake had a chemical believed to be lime chloride on their skin. And it's believed that the killer or killers meant to use the lime to help speed up decomposition instead of lime chloride that preserved the bodies. That's where the chemical comes in, why the killers used chemicals, Ethan.
Okay, well that makes sense then. Robert Robertson, 41 years of old, was found on July 22nd of 1950s on a street 2138 Davenport Avenue, and believed to have been killed 6 to 8 weeks before he was found. And also, he fit the profile of the other victims.
And like we said, there's an alleged connection to the Black Dahlia, but it's very not a connection in my opinion, because in December 1938, the alleged killer sent a letter to the Los Angeles police saying they would kill a woman in LA, and they referred to themselves as a DC or doctor of chiropractic. And the investigation only found animal bones. And about a decade later, Elizabeth Short was found bisected but not decapitated, which decapitation was the big MO, or at least the biggest MO of the Cleveland torso murders. So, very lackluster connection, in my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't really believe that either. Frank Dolezal, one of the two prime suspects, was arrested in August 24th of 1939 in connection to Polillo's murder. Dolezal and Polillo had lived together and had connections to both Andrassy and Wallace. They died the same day he was arrested at the age of 52 under mysterious circumstances at the county jail while in custody by Sheriff Martin O'Donnell, and was posthumously cleared of involvement.
And Dr. Francis Sweeney, the second, I guess, suspect, was a World War One veteran who was a part of a medical unit that performed amputations in the field, which would kind of fit with the MO of the murders. And he suffered nerve damage from a gas attack during the war. And due to his war experience, he suffered from pathological and anxiety and depression, which led to him developing alcoholism. And by 1934, he and his wife had separated. So, like in Criminal Minds, that they say most serial killers have a trigger. Well, war, nerve damage from a gas attack during a war, there could be a trigger. And him and his wife getting separated, there's a trigger that kind of fits the timeline even better, since at least in the confirmed timeline. So, and I think he was the main suspect that the investigation was focusing on after Dolezal.
Yeah, I guess I don't know enough about the case to really say like which one I suspect out of those, but like I think you've convinced me there.
With the two big red flags, the kind of what I kind of called PTSD. I'm not saying he had PTSD. I'm not a doctor. I'm kind of the furthest thing from a doctor. That sounds like he was suffering from some sort of PTSD type symptoms, with the suffering from alcoholism, anxiety, and depression. It just seems like he was undiagnosed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In my not so professional doctor opinion. Again, not a doctor. I'm not here trying to diagnose somebody. Yeah.
And of course, there is some pop culture references in this. So the Kingsbury Run was a 2018 film that was based on a modern copycat. And then, of course, in Unsolved Mysteries, there is an episode on it.
And on to our thoughts. If it was the acts of a singular person, I think it was likely Sweeney. But I think it's more likely multiple perpetrators, as a third person that we didn't mention. Willie Johnson was also suspected to be the serial killer due to a similar, but as of this recording, an unconnected crime that he was convicted of.
Yeah, like I said before, I don't really know as much about the case as you do. I think, like, after you started talking about Sweeney a little bit more, I do kind of agree that most likely that, like, that's a good suspect, I guess. But then again, yeah.
It's a good theory.
And multiple perpetrators would make it easier for them to, I guess, go after that many people, and also just make it easier to take down the people. So, I mean, multiple perpetrators make sense too.
Because copycats are a thing.
Yeah, I mean,
they're rare, but copycats do happen.
Yeah, I mean, they made a movie about the modern copycat one.
Exactly. So I think that's all we've got for this week. Next week we'll be taking a look at the infamous Dyatlov Pass incident. So stay tuned for that. Any last words, Ethan?
Just thanks for watching, everyone.
Well, thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, drop us a like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening. If you're on Spotify, drop us a comment and a follow, and we'll see you next week.
You might wake up beside Spearfinger with an extended visit from Jack the Ripper. But if you're lucky, it'll be an angel on that range hill of Louisiana. You might meet Mary Laveau or the Road. At Folklore Unlocked, Austin and Ethan concoct their theory of the eerie and unexplained around the world, sometimes even the underworld. The lore is locked behind secrets, but folklore is meant to be unlocked. The Sokoloo is haunting NC as well as Tennessee. There are many giants that might be clients of the Dark Watchers, who might have psychokinesis. And the phantom time hypothesis is like a phoenix, coming back around again and again. The laser strain on your brain if you've got more than 2 brain cells in you. Some believe McCartney is dead because they read into the Mandela effect, which is subject to folklore.